What's up guys, Callum from Westwood Table Soccer here. Welcome to the Painting Academy by Westwood Table Soccer, where we are painting Feyenoord from 1958-59. Welcome back. If you are now here, you will have missed out on the discount, unfortunately, from our sponsors at Subbuteo Table Soccer. But you can still, if you want to get involved and you haven't yet, there's still great value over at Subbuteo Table Soccer. So get yourselves down there. Their link is still in the description. You can go and get the parts for this. Today we're going to be covering a whole number of things, and the first thing you may have noticed is we are completely empty over here, because the first thing we're going to be showing you is getting yourself set up. Now I understand that not everybody will have this space here to work in, but wherever you're setting up, the sort of principles are still going to be the same. First thing you're going to want to do is get yourselves either the paper towel down, kitchen roll, whatever, or the old tea towel that you've seen us use before. So what I'm going to do really quickly, little time lapse through, is I'm just going to get my paper towel down. I'm going to be doing it. Cool, so there we go, we're all set up. As I said, this first one is where I'm going to be sitting, where I'm going to be painting on. We've got one over here. This one is just for our cleaning of brushes and things like that. And this one is for putting our mixing sticks, etc on. That's the first thing you're going to do. As I said, you guys may not have all this area to work in. The other thing you guys also may not have that we have here are these two daylight lamps. If you don't have any daylight lamp, I would recommend it if you're going to be doing this more than once. Okay, definitely get yourself a little lamp version. I'm quite lucky that I've got this overbun that was my mum's, that I stole from her when she finished doing nail art. So that's a really good one. Question I get asked quite a lot is, do I use magnification? Now, I always answer it exactly the same way. Personally, no, I don't. Both of these, or this light here, does have the option for magnification, but I find it makes me a worse painter when I use it. But you guys might want to use it, so if you are struggling with this at any point during the series, don't be afraid to get yourself some magnification out, okay? You don't have to do it exactly the same way that I do things. I'm just trying to show you how I work it and try to teach you and help you along, but there will always be alternative methods of doing things, and you may find something that works better for you. So now I've got my stuff set up here, I've got my lights on. As I say, the more light you can get, the better and easier this is going to be. Next couple of things we need to get out. Okay, in here, in my little jar, this is my white spirit, that's going to live over there. Next things, obviously, two brushes, 0, 0 and a 0. I'm probably, if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I will probably only use the 00 for this whole thing. I've got my 0 here just in case I am going to use it, but probably won't. Need to get both of those out. Other things you will need, something to open your paint tins with. I use these, just a little pair of flat nose pliers. You guys can use screwdrivers, kitchen knives, whatever, but this is what I use, so I'm going to need these out. Next thing I'm going to need, or you guys are going to need, are your paints. Okay, as I said, I'm using 3 colours in this episode, so I've got 3 of those bad boys out. And finally, my little guys are in here. Now, the guy that has been fully painted, he has been taken out. As you can see, all these guys are completely naked. So what I'm going to do now is just get these guys out onto the table, and then we're going to be ready to go. Alright, so everything's there on the table. I'm going to show you guys a little bit closer, and then we're going to get on it. Okay, so now we have got everything out and we are set up on our workspace. Couple of little things I'm going to talk about before we get going. First things first, if you're doing anything like this, you're going to have white spirit open, you're going to have paints open. Make sure you have a ventilated space. What you don't want is a massive breeze coming through, and you also don't want it to be super hot, because when your paint tins are open, okay, if you've got a massive breeze coming through, that's just going to be drying your paint. It's going to make it really sticky, same as if it's really hot. So if it's really hot in the room you are working in, try and make it colder. You want to kind of just be sort of ambient, sort of normal temperature. It's like I said, if it's too hot, your paint's going to go really sticky, it's going to dry really quickly. But also you do want to have that ventilation. So I've got windows over here just on the little crack thingy on the first lock, so they're all sorted there. The other thing I will say to you is just have another quick double check of your figures. Are they prepped properly? If you missed episode 1, we covered figure preparation, getting rid of any excess little bits of plastic, little bits of extra that are hanging on, little hanging offy bits. We want to get rid of them. So give your figures one last check over. I've done that just quickly off camera, and I had a couple that still had a few little bits on. So always double check that you have got that sorted. Let's get on with it then. Alright then, so the first tin we are going to be using is our Mat 61. On the side of these, it does give you instructions about stirring and shaking. I'm not going to shake mine. The reason I'm not going to shake mine is because it puts loads of paint on the underside of the lid, so underneath here. And what happens when you open it, all sort of, it can run off, or you're stuck on the lid, and you end up wasting that paint that's on the lid. So I don't want to do that. So all I'm going to do is, like I say, I got flat nose pliers. So I'm just going to get under there, little twist, pops open. As you can see, I've shaken this before, and look how much there is kicking around there. That paint, all that on there, it's all thick, gloopy, completely unusable, so I don't want to use it. And to be honest with you, my skin colour paint is a little bit thick, but all I'm going to do, I'm just going to get my little mixy stick in there. I'm going to move it around. I need to thin my paint out a little bit, because this stuff, as you can see, is a little bit thick. So bear with me while I just grab some stuff to show you how to thin this out. Okay, so here we are, we're back. Now, I would usually use one of these. I got a little pipette. Now, I'm not expecting everybody to have one of these, but so I'll show you how I would do it without one. My white spirit is yellow. Looks like I've got desperate during painting. I haven't, it's just there's a stick in there, as you can see. It got dropped in there a really long time ago, doing exactly what I'm about to try and do now. I want to get it open. I'm not really bothered about having excess paint on here, but I don't want to have loads. So all I would do in this case, tip my bottle, hopefully you guys can see it, just soak my stick in the white spirit and then get it in here and then mix it round, okay? This does take a lot longer to do it by that method, but you can already see it's coming off of there a little bit better. But what I would do, because I do this all the time, a few little drops in there. Don't need a lot. I don't want this to turn to water. The more thinned out it is, the less coverage you get. And obviously you want to have coverage. You don't want to be going over this 8-9 times. You should only have to go over your skin once. So there's a little extra tip. I wasn't expecting to have to do that in this episode, but hey, these things happen. I've got an old tin. If you've got brand new paints, you will probably have to mix yours for a lot longer than I will, because if they've been sat for a long time in the warehouse, what you'll find is your paints will be separated. There'll be a load at the bottom, real gloopy, powdery stuff, and there'll be loads at the top. So then you probably will have to mix and shake and mix and shake, and you may have to do that quite a lot to get it to where it needs to be. So that's something you may need to be aware of. Obviously mine are old paints, so it's not something I'm going to have a trouble with, but I'm happy with that now. Still a little bit on the gloopy side, but that is simple. That is how you open it. And then all you want to do is try and run your stick on the outside. You don't want to take a lot of paint out of it. And then over here, like I said to you before, got my extra bit of tissue over here just for cleaning that stick off. Chuck the stick down. I am now ready to get that stuff out and onto my figures, which brings me to the next point we're going to cover. Okay, the next thing we're going to cover in this video is figure handling. Now, this is only how I handle my figures. You may find that I'm about to tell you doesn't work for you. I hold my figures, okay, and I paint my figures in their bases. There are a lot of people that won't paint in their bases, or they'll have a set of spare bases which are their painting bases, because there is always a risk when you're painting a team in your bases that you could make a mistake and get some paint on the base or the disc. If it gets on the base, it's not a massive issue. It's really easy if you catch it early enough just to wipe it off. If it gets in the disc, it's a bit of a bigger problem because you've got that lettering and the rough edges. But I paint my figures in their bases, okay? There are painting aids and things you can get if you want to. There are like little clips you can get that go on the desk that have got like magnifiers attached to them, and little bulldog clip and little crocodile clips and things you can hold your figures. But personally, I need to feel my figure. I need to feel the weight of it and how my brush is touching it, etc. So if it's in a clip, I I don't get that feeling, that response, that feedback of how hard I'm pressing on there, etc, etc. So I have to be touching my figures. I touch my figures all the time. So if I'm painting boots, socks, legs, I'm holding on to their heads. This will lead to there being some play wear on his head as I'm painting this figure. I'm not bothered about that because I've still got these paints. I can just go around at the very, very end. If you've seen any of my other series, the Carlisle series or any of my other series, you'd have seen me do this anyway. I go around and just touch up those skin areas. So I hold their heads. When I'm doing other bits of the player, I'm holding their base because I need, like I say, I need to feel the figure in my hand to understand how my paint's going on. The other thing I will do is I will have it resting on the table. There are some people I've seen do it, and again, this might work for you guys. If you're trying to paint something that's in mid-air, even if it's in one of them clips, there's movement. There's a lot of scope for this guy to go up, down, left, right, sideways. He can move around all over the place. I can't have that. I need to make sure that he's resting on here. That way, the only movement he's got really is to roll, and rolling is what I want him to do, especially when I'm painting things that are technically cylindrical. So arms, legs, they're all cylindrical shapes, really. The body is a little bit different, but I wouldn't hold him by this. But any lower part of the body is cylindrical, so I want it to roll so that I can get those areas in. So that is how I handle my figures. The other one we're going to come on to really, really quickly, goalkeeper. Some people, again, will paint their goalkeepers in the rods. I can't do it. Get him out. Don't want him in there because that rod's going to hit me in the face and get right in my way. However, I can't hold on to his bar because his bar does not give me that roll that I need. So that is where the old blue tack blob comes in, and what I will create, and what I tend to create, is a shape that looks like this, because I want to hold on to this bit. I'm going to put his bar into here. I'm not worried about his boots at the moment because I'm not painting them, and I want him to kind of be like this, because now I can roll him as I need to do this. You could, if you wanted to, use this to paint your figures as well. If you wanted to, you find this method works, then by all means, absolutely crack on. But this is how I paint my goalkeepers. With goalkeepers, you can choose. You may not paint their hands. If you want to have gloves on, leave them as white. The tricky areas in the keeper, which we'll come to in more detail, is mainly getting around that neck and avoiding the shirt. But because this guy's having a dark shirt anyway, it's not going to be a massive issue. So that is how I handle my figures, and you'll see me do it, and I'll probably cover it as I'm showing you guys anyway, but that is how I handle my figures. I'm going to go through the goalkeeper first, I think, so I'm just going to move the old camera around and show you me painting the goalkeeper. Wait a second, me again. What I'm going to do is, I know some of you are probably going to ask yourself the question, how long does this take to do? So what I've done is, coming up right now is a time lapse of how long it took me to paint all the skin on one single figure with a little timer at the bottom so that you guys can see how long it takes. Let's roll that footage now. Cool, so from that little time lapse there, you can see that one single figure took me about 2 minutes and 20 seconds to paint. So I would say you multiply that by 10, you're looking at about 22, 23, 24 minutes. I would say if you're doing them all long sleeves, with the goalkeeper, you may be looking at 30, 35 minutes. If you're going to be mixing and adding the short sleeves on, maybe 40, 45. But that's how long, roughly, it's going to take to do all your figures, all skinned up, all ready to go. So let's get me off the screen and let's get on with this video. So, goalkeeper. First thing I'm going to do is the same order I paint everything. What I want on my brush is to be flat. So it usually goes in my mouth, and I want to make it nice and thin, but nice and flat. Okay, take a little bit of paint from here. Okay, don't want loads, but it doesn't matter if I've got a little bubble on the end there. And what I want to do is I'll start right in the middle, not near any of the lines. Now, I've mentioned this before in other videos, and the reason that is because if I go and try and get close to either the shorts or the socks and I've got loads of paint on, my chances of it dripping over onto that area and getting paint where I don't want it is massive. Okay, so the reason I have my brush flat is, one, it gives me more surface area, and two, it's a lovely straight line, which is going to make it easier for me to cut in and match up to the lines already on the kit. Now, I'm fully aware that I don't think you can see what I'm doing right there, but you'll be able to see round in a minute. So a lot of it is really small touches. So in round here, nice flat edge, start up here, bring it down to that already molded line, and match up what I've got, and the same at the top. So what we're looking to do is just cover that skin area. So what I'm going to do, quickly time lapse through the rest of this bit, and then we'll come on to the head and the hands. Cool, so there is our goalkeeper's legs completely done. As I said, brush remained flat as possible. Don't want to use loads of paint. Obviously, the more paint you've got on there, whenever you go to reapply paint to your brush, you'll put less on than you did when you first started. And it's just all about following those mold lines round, getting as close as you can. Now with this kit, because the shorts and the socks are both plain black, that it's not a massive issue if you make a mistake here, so don't worry. In the same breath, it's not a massive issue if you make a mistake on the hands or the head either, because the goalkeeper shirt will either be really, really dark green or black, depending on what option you go with. Remember, in the last episode, I mentioned about the goalkeeper's shirt. Now, the actual goalkeeper's shirt for this team was really, really dark green. However, if you don't want to buy a brand new paint for the sake of doing one goalkeeper's shirt, then we've already got that black because we're using it on the other players. You can just paint him all black. Cool. Next little thing. Remember earlier on I said about the goalkeeper's head being the hardest part to get right, because we need some skin around the back of his head for his neck, and we need to join up and come around. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this keeper is a V-neck or a round neck. Because the shirt on the kit is a V-neck, I'm going to do it as a V-neck. So principles are pretty much the same. I'm going to start right in the middle of his face. Just going to put some paint right in the middle of his face, and I'm going to work around there. The mold lines on the goalkeeper's face are not as clear and obvious. That's very topical. They're not as clear and obvious as they are on the figures, on the outfielders. I'm not really sure why, but it doesn't really matter. So we're going to come down just in here, and we're going to take up a little bit more of the shirt there in sort of a triangle shape. And what I'm going to do is try and match that round to the other side. So I'm just going to come around here, do the rest of his face up there. Going to come down to his neckline, and I want to try and just join that triangle up there to create that little V in there. Am I happy with that? Yeah, I'm not disappointed with it. I'm going to come around in there. There we go, that's better. So this is where your potential issue is, because of how close the arms are to the side of the head. Again, my brush is still in the flat position. I want to come round and come around from the front and try and hook it round to the back, because I want to try and join it up. And like I said, it's not a massive issue if you guys get skin on your goalkeeper shirt here, because you're going to be painting over it anyway. You're not leaving him in a white shirt, so it's not a massive issue. And it's definitely harder on his right arm. Now what I've done here is I'm just twisting now so that I'm actually putting the thinner bit through, because I'm trying to join that line through, and I'm pretty sure I've done it. Back of his head's not perfect, but again, not a massive issue. We can tie that up with hair. So what we've done, we've created a little V here, and by using and twisting our brush, we've been able to get in here, and this is the hardest one, to get through there and join it to the line we created around the back. Now we'll be doing his hair and stuff, so we might make this neckline a little bit smaller. Because my guy's from the 50s, okay, I'm going to be doing him as Subbuteo would have done, and I'm giving him white hands. The hands are easy, because you just got to go to the mould line, okay, and come round. Again, I haven't changed my brush, I haven't cleaned my brush off with this one. You will need to, if your paint starts to feel particularly thick and you've ended up with a lot of excess still on your brush as you're working, you will need to clean it, because it will get sort of a gloopy and it will affect the way your bristles work, so keep an eye on that. But this stuff's working quite well, and we are coming along very nicely with our keeps here. This guy is all set. So there we go. That is it. That is our goalkeeper pretty much ready to go for his kit. There's nothing else I need to do to him. You guys can go for a round neck or a V-neck if you want to. Like I said, the kit's a V-neck, so I'm going with a V-neck too. What I'm going to do now really quickly is just clean off my brush. So it goes in. Don't touch the bottom of your jar, because mine's covered in sort of a silty mess. What I don't want to do, just wiggle it around in there. You've definitely heard that noise before. Just the excess through there, twist it round, and if you've done a good job, look, there is no residue on there. So happy days, that is clean. Let's move on to our outfielders. Brush flat as possible. Paint onto the brush. Apply your first pieces right smack in the middle of the leg, and then bring your brush up flat side down along that short line. And I've got quite a lot of paint on here, to be fair, so I could probably work this round all the way. I'm going to follow that short line all the way around. Then I'm going to come round, just continue it round again. This is why I mentioned earlier on about that roll being oh so important. This figure cannot travel up or down, he can only roll, just making this a much easier job than if he was floating in midair, because it doesn't matter how good your set of clips are or how steady your hand is, there's going to be vertical and lateral movement, whereas on this he's not moving. So there's one leg done. Left leg is complete. I will start on the left leg, and I start at the front. When I'm doing the right leg, I start at the back. I don't really know why, I just find it more comfortable. So again, apply the paint into the middle, bring it up to that short line, come down to the top of the sock and bring those bristles around to spread that paint across that line, coming up into here, just like that. Easy peasy. So along round there, finish his leg into there. So you can see we've come around there, we've looped, we followed that line round. Now all we've got to do is join them together. So we're going to come in, starting at the middle, coming to the top, and again first stroke into the middle of the leg where there's no danger of it going anywhere. Join that up to there. Fill those spaces. Use some of this excess paint that we've got over here to just bring ourselves round and get that leg all done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to time lapse through the rest of these legs. Now I'm doing a 60-40 split in this team between skin tones. So I'm going to have 6 Caucasian figures, so in the matte 61. I'm going to have 2 figures in the matte 234, and I'm going to have 2 figures in the matte 98. You guys can do whatever you want. I've got 2 more of these guys to get some skin onto, so let's get that on there now. So now we're going to come on to the easiest bit you're going to see. So I've managed to get the camera right in front of me because I'm pretty confident I'll be able to do this from this angle. So what we're going to do is hands. Now hands are the easiest bit you are going to come across to do. So the paintbrush setup is exactly the same, okay? Flat and as wide as we can. And all you want to do is just come across, lining that top edge of your brush up with the bottom of his shirt. Easy as that. And then just across the bottom. There's one hand done. You guys can see there. So we're going to come around now and do the other side exactly the same way. This hand though is a little bit bigger than the other one. Not really sure why. I don't really think it matters, but is a little bit bigger than the one on the other side. Cool, so there we go. Hands, easy as that. Flat brush. Okay, that is really, really important. And then you line that bristle up with the bottom of the shirt line and you just come across. And then at the bottom, it's easy. There's nothing to overpaint there. Okay, so we've moved you around again. And what we're going to do now is we are going to do the face and we're going to create that V in here. What we are going to do at the end of this section is show you guys as well how to create short sleeves using paint. There's a number of ways you can do it. The simplest and the way we're going to show you in this series is to use the paint to create the short sleeves. But before that, let's get on with doing this face. Now the paintbrush setup is the same as it always has been. We want to be in a flat and thin setup there. And we're going to start, as we always do, put some paint in the middle of his face. Again, not a massive issue if you overpaint any areas into the hairline, because the hair colour you're going to put on is going to cover that up anyway, so that's not a massive problem. So we're just going to come around, fill in this face here. And again, along the back, when we come to that in a minute, does have some ears, so we're going to come in around those, across that front hairline. And what we're going to do is, to create that V, we're going to come down here, we're going to start there, get to where the collar actually is, and just bring it down into the front of the shirt, so it comes out of the little mold line that's already there. And then all you need to do then is join it with the other one. Now it is a more aggressive V than that, and I am going to create that aggressive V, but that's how I start with it. I just want to get that basic shape in the right place to start with. As you can see, we've got it there. Around the back, the skin line can come up as high as you want it to, really. Depends what sort of haircut, hairstyle you're going to be doing on your players. This guy's going to have quite a high neck around here, so that's nice and easy to do, just in there. And then all we're going to do, just to make that V a little bit more aggressive, is we're now going to flip our brush from being on the flat side to now being on the pointy side. And what I want to do, bring it down into the shirt a little bit more and just drag it back up so that it joins back where my other lines are. And now we've got a much more aggressive V structure there. So alright, cool. So now we've got these guys here. They have all now got their base layer of skin on. So just quickly, as a little bonus for this, if you guys want to do this, if you're going to keep it traditional, as close to Subbuteo heavyweight as possible, then you will not do this. You will not mix long and short sleeve up. You will just keep them all as they are, like this, with just their hands painted and their faces, neck and legs, etc. But I like to have a mixture in my team. On the team group that we're basing this off, there is a mixture of long sleeves and short sleeve shirts. So that's what I'm going to do on this set. So while we've got this guy here, it's really, really simple. Brush setup exactly the same. We want it flat, okay, with as much surface area as we possibly can. And we're going to start from the bottom of the shirt, and we're just going to bring it up to where you want it to be. And the key here is to cut it on kind of a diagonal line across. If you just go straight, okay, so if I followed that line across straight there, it doesn't follow the contour of where his arm is facing. So you want to try and cut it across diagonally so that you get that realistic shape that you're going to be looking for in there. Just going to dive in here really quickly. I mentioned that last little bit of video there about a straight cut and a diagonal cut. So what I'm going to do now is very quickly show you the difference and what I mean by don't straight cut and go for a diagonal cut, and show you a comparison between the two. So it should then become obvious what I mean by a straight and a diagonal cut. What we want to do is diagonal cut. We do not want a straight cut. Let's roll that little bit of video to show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so hopefully from that little clip there, you can see what I mean about a straight cut and a diagonal cut. If you do straight cut, it is easy to fix as long as you haven't straight cut too high up the sleeve. But yeah, so back onto what I was talking about before. Let's go. And then once you've got that first line in across the top, it's really easy just to track it all the way around. So every time, as we said before, start with most of your paint in the middle, continue that line round, keep that flat edge at the top. Really important as well that you don't take too much of the top of the sleeve away. The areas where you may fall into trouble here, let me just finish this guy off and I will show you. Okay, so that's how you create the one on the right hand side arm. Then it's going to be pretty much the same process over here, but what I do want to just flag up really quickly is something that you need to make sure that you don't do. Do not want to bring your skin up too high. You want to have a gap still here where shirt and there's a clear gap between the two. If I just put the red underneath, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So you want to have that gap there between the arm and the torso of the shirt. Couple of reasons for it. If you bring that skin line up too high, then you're not going to be able to get a nice divide between the shirt and the skin line. And on this one, they've got different coloured cuffs. So on the red sleeve, it's a white cuff, and on the white sleeve, it's a red one. So we need to be able to fit that in as well as the rest of the sleeve line. So really important that we don't bring this up too high. So let's carry on then and get this second one done on the other side. Principles are exactly the same. Brush as flat as possible. I start with these ones just because it's easier on the back of the shirt. I'm starting in the middle. I'm going to come down. I'm going to meet my hand line there. And then as we get closer to the top, we just slow it down a little bit. Because what we don't want to do, if we're rushing with our brush strokes, we could end up making a mistake. And again, we want to follow that line round in diagonal. And then what we want to try and do is just find it around the inner arm. We can just find it in there, join onto it, and then just track it all the way around so that it joins the outer arm line there, again in that same diagonal cut. But that is as simple as it gets to create a short sleeve shirt on a Subbuteo figure. Alright, so on the screen now you'll be able to see all 10 of my outfield players, all with their skin tones added, and the goalkeeper as well. I put him back into his rod just for this images really, there's no other reason for it. He will be coming back out and going into that blue tack. If you guys have got any questions about anything that you've seen in this video, anything that you want me to see cover again or re-go over, or whatever you guys need to know information wise, get in the comments below. As I've said throughout this video and throughout this series, you can also email us westwood.ts@gmail.com, get us on our socials, and also send in your progress images of this stuff. I'd love to see it, and what we can do at the end of this series is put together like a video montage of everybody's photos of how their progress came along and how they ended, and how your guys' creations differ from what mine looks like. So that, my friends,